Playboi Carti is overrated. And I say that not as someone that doesn't enjoy any of his music, but as someone that sees his music and his artistic identity, and I see a lack of care, passion, and effort put into these things. Let me explain, though. Let me explain. Things like keeping the fans waiting, waiting for 5 years for an album to come out, and dropping an album that has 30 tracks. I don't remember how many tracks were on Whole Lot of Red, but there was a lot of waiting for that record. And when it finally came out, it was very bloated. There's things like the canceling of shows. Like there was this Thailand show that got canceled, and you had people coming from China, coming from all sorts of different places to come see him at this festival, and he canceled. There's AI allegations, and to me, what's really interesting about the AI allegations is that, one, why are they happening with him, right? They don't happen with most artists, they don't happen with, but they've happened with a couple artists in recent years. They've happened with Carti, and they've happened with Drake, and also Kanye, because one, the music that they're getting in this instance is lacking a certain quality or distinctness. Like for instance, that what's that Rescue song by Drake? It lacked a quality or distinctness that people expected. So they thought, well, maybe this is AI. And the second thing is that he kind of has this thing about him where it's like, well, he would be the kind of person to just have someone else rap a verse and they put a filter of him on it. So I don't know what's worse, having people think that, yeah, he might do that, or having music that people go, that feels like someone else could have just done that. Like, those are marks against your artistry, or marks against your dedication to your artistry. And then there's the Aiden Ross situation, and like, I got no love for that guy at all.
I have work to do. I'm done. I fixed you.
Where you going?
Forget him. But doing something like that, like going on and like your fans are like waiting and waiting and waiting, and you keep them waiting all this time, then you show up for 5 minutes, don't say anything, don't really engage in any kind of way, take a bag of money and then dip. It's kind of messed up. I got no sympathy. I got no sympathy or love for Aiden Ross, but like that wasn't cool. Like, I think we can all agree that wasn't cool. So with this new album, Music, or I Am Music, one of the things that's been discussed a lot is the Kendrick features. Now, the moral question for me with this collaboration is a little bit more murky and not as much my focus, actually. But I want to say that there are real good faith criticisms in that kind of space. And personally, I had a little bit of a mixed feelings about the whole collaboration here, but I want to make a statement here and say that, like, mixed feelings are okay. It's okay to have mixed feelings about something and for something to, like, exist. Like, we don't have to sum up all of our opinions in a clickbait title, We can have mixed opinions on stuff. We can feel kind of conflicted. And I want to read a comment in particular that someone made under a Read My Soul's video. Read My Soul made a video. He's a very thoughtful, very smart dude. I enjoy a lot of his videos, and his video on Kendrick, like being is he a hypocrite, kind of asking that question. He definitely defended Kendrick pretty heavily in that video, and I agreed with some of his points, some of his overall points, but I also think that there are real legitimate people, like legitimate fans, that are raising concerns or raising points that I think are totally valid. I'm going to read this comment here that was made by someone. So they say, I don't think Kendrick is a hypocrite. FT Signifier made a point once about Kodak Black's presence on Mr. Morale that I think is relevant here. He said it's perfectly okay to be triggered and unforgiving to folks who have caused harm, especially if you've been a victim of that harm yourself. But if someone is trying to rehabilitate themselves and other people do have the capacity to help them in that journey, those people should do that work, and we shouldn't hold it against them. I think the issue, though, is that precisely because we live in a world that treats black men as disposable, we never get to see whether or not they're trying to rehabilitate themselves. I don't follow Playboi Carti at all, so I don't know the extent to which he's publicly talked about his abuse against the mother of a child or his absentee fatherism. Kendrick has publicly explored his mistakes and trying to be better. This is why I'll always be a fan, even if I don't agree with all the things he says or does. I can hold space for that because he's made the effort to show us his path. Sometimes it feels like people want us to give grace to folks, Diddy, R. Kelly, etc., when they haven't even expressed any remorse or understanding of what they did wrong, and that's where I can't follow. I can hold space for that because he's made the effort to show us his path. That right there, I think, is the key part there. We hold space for Kendrick because of the way he's confronted these topics, or that he's confronted them at all. So, well, however you feel about this, if you just don't care at all, if you think I think that there's a lot more nuance in this conversation, and I don't want it to become this like weird super fan hyperbolic back and forth, because we're talking about real stuff. We're talking about actual real serious topics like abuse and fathering and things like that. These are serious topics. They deserve serious discussion. That's what I think. Now, in the case of Kendrick Lamar's 2022 album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, Kodak Black's inclusion on that album had a lot of people with mixed feelings, including me. Now, I think that's a great album, but I have mixed feelings about Kodak's inclusion. But I will say, Kodak's inclusion on this record serves a particular purpose, and the way he fit into the record, clearly Kendrick was trying to do something there. So, like it or not, feel uncomfortable about it, or feel perfectly fine about it, there was a purpose behind it. Kendrick's inclusion on Carti's album, I don't really get the same feeling, because that's Kendrick coming into Carti's space. But again, feel however you feel about it, there's nuance there. That's my main point. And final point on this doesn't make Kendrick some horrible person. This doesn't mean that, we should never listen to his music again or anything like that. I'm simply pointing out that it's okay to feel mixed about this, or be even disappointed, or think something he does or says is hypocritical. That's perfectly okay. If we can't be critical of our favorite artists, then are they really our favorite artists? But moving on from that, because this video isn't even about that. This isn't about hating. It's about wanting more from artists. Now let me be clear about what I mean. And Reed says it in this video, and this is something I've been saying for years. I'm not talking about wanting more politically or morally from artists, but artistically, right? I think people are inserting much more intention and care into Carti's work than is warranted. And I think his I Don't Care for Fness is the vehicle for that. Like, even the most angsty and bullheaded groups and artists showed you through the music, and sometimes outside of it, that their craft was everything to them. Some people have drawn comparisons to Kurt Cobain, but it only works when comparing aesthetic and vibe, in my opinion. Like, outside of that, there's not really much to compare. If you listen to In Utero, for instance, and hear the lyrics and experimentation on that record, Carti shouldn't come to mind, just objectively. If you know about, like, the Unplugged sessions, and how passionate Kurt was about everything from the acoustics to the lighting to the props, you wouldn't compare them. So, just to round this point out, I have no problem with Carti's music existing, and I do think vocally, and at times sonically, working with producers like OJ Vota, Filthy, and Cardo, he does push some boundaries. I think his music has a place, and I do enjoy some of it. But yes, I do think that he's elevated and praised to too high a level. Take somebody like Doom. He did antics that people really hated. Understandably, but the music clearly had enough passion and effort put into it that you couldn't say he doesn't care about the craft. You couldn't say that. No one is saying that. Doom was a character, yes, but he put the care in character. I don't care if that's corny, I'm keeping it. If it's the experimental that you find appealing in Carti, there are many other artists out there that are making bold music, that are putting way more effort and passion into their craft, like JPEG, Lust Sick Puppy, Slauson Malone. Like, these are very different groups in very different lanes. They're experimenting in their own ways, but you can feel the passion, you can feel the love for the music, for the art that they're creating. Like, let's zoom in. JPEG Mafia. He has many styles and talents, and it can take you between nostalgic, vulnerable, cutthroat and abrasive, political, celebratory, romantic. I could go on. He's one of my favorite artists because there's layers to his work and identity, there's passion in his work, and there's self-awareness as well. Those three things are key. His music might not be for everyone.
I do it, a vengeance. Takes the spit heads out, shot with class, give it attention.
But having some amount of all three of those things can make a great artist. And he's punk as shit, by the way. You can be punk as hell and also care a lot about your art. I think people get it mistaken when they think of what punk really is. It's not necessarily about not caring about your art or not caring about what you're putting out. It's more of a rebellion to authority and norms. Those are things that make an artist worth uplifting and rooting for. Carti, to me, while I do enjoy some of his songs, leans so hard on vibes and aesthetic that there's a lack in layers, passion, self-awareness. Not to say you have to have a super high amount of all these things, but Carti lacks in all three of those things. Again, This isn't saying he needs to rap triple entendres like a Doom to be layered as an artist, or produce and mix all his work like Peggy to be passionate, and he doesn't have to make music as introspective as Kendrick. Different people have different skills, and different people occupy different lanes. But for an artist to warrant mass praise, I think there has to be a communication to their listeners outside of their aesthetic and energy that they bring. And look, I understand that his shtick is, I don't give a F. I've been a fan of many angsty groups and artists over the years. I understand that rebellion and angst are central to some genres, but I don't give a F shouldn't be your whole identity. Carti's nonchalantness has reached beyond the fourth wall of what we're experiencing artistically, and it starts to look like you don't really care much about your work. That's a level of I don't care that makes me just not care about your music. Because if I'm asking, how much do you care versus how much do your fans care? In almost every instance, you should care more than any fan. That's why you are the artist. So what do I want? Well, look, if his fans are happy, whatever, ignore me. Enjoy what he's giving you, cool. But what I would want from Carti is a window into him and or into some cohesive artistic vision, not the smoke and mirrors of aesthetic and vibes that his music wears like a vampire cloak. I think he's coasting on that. He should show his fans that he really cares about his craft.
So of course, AI music probably isn't great for the industry, but I'll be honest, if it sounds fire, I'm still bumping it.
He doesn't need to make music like any of the other artists I've mentioned here, but again, for me, I need to feel that you care more about your craft than the fans that waited 5 years do. I want that for his fans, and I want that for him, the artist, because that makes art better. There's different ways to care, but caring about art makes art better. And as long as I don't feel that way about him, I'm gonna feel like he's very overrated. This is Velo Media, I'm Noah, I'm out of here.
Velo.